Wind is always, always is the wind. It cares not where it goes, cares not where it's been. Newborn cries, an old man dies. The wind is always again, always is the wind. The marriage of a man to his soul affirms a universal flow, lifting joy-filled dreams above whispers and screams. The wind is always, always is the wind. It cares not where it goes, it cares not where it's been. A newborn cries, an old man dies. The wind is always again, always is the wind. Freedom, fluidity, sustained in perfect harmony, shall not be pushed or shoved in the direction of one's love it breathes. The wind is always, always is the wind. It cares not where it goes, it cares not where it's been. A newborn cries, an old man dies. The wind is always again, always is the wind. Mother Nature's tears of joy blanket the hearts of girls and boys. Father Heaven proclaims we are one in the same love. The wind is always, always is the wind. It cares not where it goes, cares not where it's been. A newborn cries, an old man dies. The wind is always again. The wind is always, always is the wind. It cares not where it goes, it cares not where it's newborn cries, an old man dies. The wind is always again, always is the wind. And now the wind is always again, always is the wind.
Thank you, Shawn Galaway, and welcome to Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. Hi, I'm Becky Meagher, and welcome to Transitions. That was an amazing song by our guest tonight, who is Shawn Galaway, and this is the second show that we've done, so we have two shows, so make sure you get a chance to see the other show too. But who is Shawn Galaway? Well, he's a Renaissance man, as you just heard. He's a singer, songwriter. He's also an artist and does amazing paintings, helps people find their inner healing, does workshops. And this show, in addition to talking about swimming with dolphins, which you can learn to do with him, well, Shawn, well, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah.
Gee.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you do with your workshops for men and masculinity. On our other show, you talked about I Choose Love, which is a record and soon to be a motion picture. And now there's a whole other side of you, and you do these workshops with men and masculinity. So educate us on that, please.
Okay. 28 years ago, 29 years ago, I was part of a group of men that came together, and we have been sitting in a circle for over 28 years now, I guess.
Wow, that's a long
It's called the Circle
time.
of Men, and
that's
we
in
were on your
Nashville.
show one time with that.
Yes.
Yeah, remember?
Yes.
So, you know, when I came into men's work, it was a time in my life when something was really missing in my life. I'd done a bunch of healing work. I'd learned how to do, songwriting and painting, but something was foundationally missing. And I went and saw this video with a friend of mine, and it was of Robert Bly. And he was talking about the grief that men are holding in our world right now. And I said, boy, that's just talking to me, because it felt like I had this black, empty hole in my belly. And so we all of us that were at that viewing of that show ended up starting a men's circle that met for several years. And then we partnered up with the Circle of Men, and we're still going strong right at the moment. So I became a facilitator of this kind of work. And this song that I just sang is the result of one of those men's circles that I did. And what we do when the guys come into the circle, one of the things that we encourage them to do is to be artful in some way. And so this guy, his name was Thomas Cohey, and he came into the circle, I think it was second or third meeting, and he was a closet poet.
Closet
poet. And he said, at the end of the night, we all circle up at the end of the night, and he said, Shawn, I've got this line that just came to me, and I'd like to say it. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. Let's do it. And he said, the wind is always, and always is the wind. And I said, if you write that, I will put that to music with you, and we'll create ourselves a song with that. And that's the song that you just heard. And it's one of the best songs I've ever been a part of. It was such an honor to do that. And it speaks to a man marrying his soul.
Marrying the part of himself, not a woman or another man.
No, this is marrying his soul. This is about getting in touch with your gut and your belly and your, who are you as a man, And, the story is we have very little rites of passage in our world anymore. And again, we made reference to the shootings in the last show we did. Most of these shootings are happening by disturbed young men.
Right.
Right?
What is going on?
And the Celts had a saying back in the day. They said that if we do not initiate our young men into manhood, they will become like cancer and eat on our society.
Whoa, that's happening.
Right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do in our men's circle is we take the time to really, what is authentic manhood? What does it mean to be a man in our world today? And what is the patriarchal conditioning that we've taken on that's really not the truth of what a real man is, So we spend a lot of time in redefining ourselves as men, giving ourselves the rites of passage that we never received, so that we can have more joy and fulfillment in our lives and be more present for our partners and our children, and to do work that really soothes our soul and that feeds our spirit. So this is the kind of stuff that we do. So I just love our men's circle. It's one of my favorite things that I do every week. There's a lot of fellowship there, a lot of lifelong friends that happen. And, the older men especially have a hard time, maintaining friendships. A lot of men, pass in depression. You know, it's a big problem, especially in Australia right now. One of our founding members was Australian, and
Washantara?
Washantara,
Yes.
and you know, he's created men's circles with people in the nursing homes there, and I've sat in those circles with him down there, and it's a great service, and it just gives these men, you know, something to come and get involved with again, and it's quite a service piece, and it's really great. So anyway, I've also created an online course called The Art of Masculinity, A Journey into Manhood, and when I was telling my story in the last program about how I became an artist, a visual artist, through the process of painting, it was at the same time I was beginning to sit with men. So all of my early work was through my rites of passage. And so I have this whole series of paintings and songs that I wrote around that passage. And the CD is called Freedom Cries. And so with me and my friend Simon McCain, who's also been on this show, have designed a course where we take men and or women. Women can take it, and they can have a big learning about the way men are, you know, and how we function a little bit differently than women. And they're both very valid, and that's the beauty. It's like, you know, when a man is talked into being his true self, there's something really beautiful about that can be complemented by a woman who's really in her true self, not living in basically the parameters of, again, patriarchal conditioning, which has really hurt a lot of both men and women, and the earth for that matter. So anyway, this course was designed around these songs and this artwork, and there's some processes in it, and it's all about my personal rites of passage. And it's very deeply emotional and purging, I guess you could say, is one of the things. I painted out a lot of emotion, you know, and it was an interesting experience, again, painting the lows of the lows and the highs of the highs, and finally coming to a sense where I've got some balance with all of it, you know. So very powerful work, very powerful work.
You're speaking of an online course, but don't you do live seminars like over a weekend or something also? And you have done that where? All over the world, right?
Yeah, I've done a lot of work, especially in the west part of the United States, and we do a lot of work here in Nashville, Tennessee. We have an annual event called the Kiva Men's Soul Camp, and you know, we get 25, 30 guys to come out, and we dive deep. We go into, you know, what is it? What's it really like to be a man? And I would like to tell you just one quick brief story about 2 years ago. We had a father and son come together.
Okay.
And it was unbelievable the way that we were able to create a situation for them to hear each other and to really get to a place of understanding where the father could fully give his full blessing to his son. I mean, it was miraculous. We're all in tears, just all of us. It was just so incredibly beautiful to see that, going through that angst, to come to that place of, like, you know, I'm at peace with my dad, you know.
Wow.
And a lot of us have what we call a father wound, you know. It's like we've had, you know, challenging relationships with our fathers, you know. You know, we grow up in a generation where, you know, you had to really pull them out to get them to talk about stuff.
They don't want to talk.
They were emotionally absent, and so
right.
Anyway, so there was lots of healing that we did for men, and coming back to their full power, and it's a beautiful experience, and you know, and I'd invite all the men to come out there. You know, if you're listening and this speaks to you, come join us. It's quite an experience.
Now this is, you're speaking of, because you're in Nashville, but somebody can take this course in the outline and do it wherever they are, right?
Yeah, you can do it. It's all online, and that'll give you a good start. And then, you know, I go into communities all over the place. I'm doing a big men's retreat in Salt Lake City in October.
Wow.
If anyone's in the Salt Lake area or has friends there, you know, you can go to my website. And
your website is?
ShawnGalaway.com, you know?
Yeah.
And, yeah, we'll set you up in Salt Lake City. So, yeah, it continues to be a passion of mine, and now that I'm moving into my eldership, excuse me, my elder years, it's time for me to sort of pass the buck on and be able to support some of these other guys that are coming up now to do what I've been doing for years, you know, and really, you know, share the wisdom of my experience. And that's kind of new for me.
So you look like you're 30, but when you call yourself an elder, you don't look it, for one. And at what age are you what is an elder? What is considered being an elder anymore?
In our circles, it's 50 or older.
Okay.
That's that you're considered an elder, and we have what we call a threshold experience where a man in our circle, they're coming into their 50th year, and we do a ceremony with them to really honor that passage from middle-aged into eldership, and to cultivate your wisdom so that you can be of service to these young guys coming up, you know? And that's what we do.
Now, I have been in different circles with you, and I have not been obviously in a men's circle, but to me it's sort of like conflict resolution, kind of you mix it with a little saluting to the maybe the Native American, the beginnings of the North-South, honoring the earth, and there's a ritual part in that too, and then you kind of sprinkle it with masculinity. I'm kind of searching for words. Can you explain a little bit more about the framework of how this helps men?
Well, you know, a lot of men are disconnected from the earth, from nature, you know, and so like for me, I'm Irish, and I went back into my Irish roots as well as Native American roots, and began to explore what earth-based religions and more like earth-based spirituality. So we bring that in there, and there's an archetype in the men's world called the wild man.
The wild man.
The wild
archetype.
man. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's like it's the part of us that's untamed, you know, and when it's locked up in an office all the time, or in a a job going nowhere, or passionless experiences, you know, that can wear heavy on a man. So we offer opportunities for them to let their wild man come out, you know, and to bring passion back into their life so they can share that joy with their spouses and their children and their communities, you know. It's a very important thing. I think it's one of the biggest wounds in our country right now, the lack of true male mentoring. And how do you teach a man to really love himself, love his family, love his career, and step out into the world in service? And these are all the things that we address in this male community.
Wow.
Yeah.
And well, you have the masculine circle, and you were talking about how young men aren't initiated anymore, and there's so much violence that we read about, senseless violence. Can you explain a little bit more in detail how, if you were able to fix that, what would you do?
That's a good question. First of all, people have to be willing to know that there's value in it. So
value in what?
Rites of passage.
Rites of passage. Okay.
Rites of passage, and so that's something that will have to be taught, you know. And I remember reading about a study years ago where they did a community, I think it was in Africa, where they initiated a bunch of young men and as a study group, and another study group they didn't. And by far, the ones that were initiated into manhood completely did well in their lives. The other ones were marginal compared. And so, you know, the ancients knew, our ancestors knew that if we don't take care of our young men, they're going to be troubled and they're going to create havoc in the world, you know.
That's certainly happening.
And here we see it. You know, the gang stuff that's going on, all the shootings and stuff going on, you know, the violence that's going on right now. You know, they're all calls for love, as I would say. They're all calls for help.
Right.
If you interpret them that way. And, you know, it's a systemic problem. And I think that education is a big thing. What are we doing in our school systems to teach boys about manhood? In the truest sense. You know what I mean? Not about, you know, the sporting sense or, you know, keep a stiff upper lip, you know. don't show your feelings, don't show any weakness. I'm talking about really laying it out and saying, you know what, if you have tears, that's part of your navigation system. It tells if you've been, betrayed or not. Your tears are healthy. Have them. Let's get to the bottom of what's bugging you. You know what I mean? As well as anger. Young men need something to push up against. You know what I mean? And sometimes, like in our communities, we'll give that to them, and give them a chance to let their anger out in a healthy way.
Isn't sports their way they can let go of their anger?
Absolutely. I was a hockey player, and that was the way I got some of my aggression out. But also, when my hockey career was over, there was a whole lot of emotion left over that I hadn't nearly had dealt with at all related to being a man.
Aha. So you didn't have an outlet anymore if you weren't playing hockey.
So that's when I fell into a men's circle.
Ah.
And I've had that. I've been very fortunate, and it's been an absolute blessing in my life. Yeah. So yeah, I would encourage all the men, even in the churches, their community centers. It's like it doesn't take but a commitment to meet on a Wednesday night for a couple hours and to let life air out, and that's the way I look at it. Give men the chance to let life air out. It's hard. It's hard being a man in this world, A lot of the responsibility that we have, and to get that kind of support and to know you can lean into that is a really helpful tool. Yeah.
And you're encouraging men of all religious denominations or what
all
have you?
All creed, all color,
all creed, all color.
Whatever your gender preference, whatever. It's an old. It's as old as the dirt. Men used to sit in circles, and it's like, maybe it's time to start sitting in circles again as we're going through these shifting times. Politically and economically and religious, our religious institutions. There's change coming, and how we approach it is going to be really important.
Right. Now, to shift to a different subject, something that I find fascinating also, in addition to your men's work, tell us about being with dolphins in Hawaii. That sounds so fun. And I hope we can get a little pictures of that.
Yeah, we have some,
Yeah. Tell us how that even came about and what you're doing now with that.
Well, first of all, when I was a young kid, I loved the show Flipper.
Flipper, yes.
I just absolutely thought that was great. I couldn't wait every Saturday night to go watch Flipper,
Yes.
So I wanted to swim with a wild dolphin.
Wow.
So I was in Calgary, Canada, doing a performance. And this woman approached me and she said, Shawn, I was just in Vancouver and your song, I Choose Love, came up on the big conference screen. And now I came here to work with some people and now here you are.
Wow.
And she said, do you have any interest in swimming with wild dolphins? And I said, well, absolutely. I've always wanted to do that. And she said, I take people to swim with wild dolphins in Hawaii. You can come and sing on my retreats, and I'll show you how it's done.
Wow.
So that's how it all started, and it's my favorite thing in the world to do. I take this year I'm taking 2 groups of people over. We go in 1 week in March, 1 week in February, and we swim with wild dolphins and whales and manta rays and turtles, and these beings are majestic. And they're very, very knowledgeable. And when you have a sense of their being, they have a lot to share with humanity. And especially about what I would call we consciousness, which is learning how to live our lives in awareness of the collective, that we're all one.
We are all tied
connected.
Together.
And the dolphins and the whales teach us how to play in the pod, the collective pod of humanity, in a way where we respect and honor one another. So they have a big, and people have major healings and insights when they come on this journey with us. And by far, it's one of probably the greatest fun that they'll ever have, And I have lots of people that come back because we play hard, power on. We go to the volcano and experience some ceremony with Pele. And it's a beautiful experience. I love it. It's my favorite thing of the year to do.
Wow. And you actually literally are like snorkeling alongside
Yeah.
in the water?
Yeah, I mean, they get as close to me as them sitting
And
here
are
with
they
you.
looking at you? What are they
They'll
doing?
stare you down. I mean, last year I remember there was 3 dolphins that swam by me, and this one right here curved off, and he came back and he stared me down, and then he turned around and went back to the other 3. He was checking me out, you know. And some people have experiences, you know, dolphins have sonar,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they'll get like they'll feel like something hit them, you know, and it's like what the dolphins are doing. They're basically checking you out.
Wow.
And sometimes a dolphin will, this hasn't happened to me or any of my people, but I've heard this several times from my partner, who's basically a dolphin whisperer, and she's just fantastic out there. And anyway, a dolphin will come up and start tapping on your back, you know, and basically, you know, someone has a bad back, and they're there helping them heal this.
Whoa, I love that.
Yeah, and these are wild animals.
Yeah.
So they're great beings, and they're great fun. They play. We get to play with them, and they don't let us. We're not allowed to touch them. And but you know, last 2 years, I mean, I've been in pods of over 200 for an hour and a half.
Whoa.
And it's like I'm in a cathedral of dolphins, and it's like I'm an airplane just going along with them. You know.
How wonderful.
It's spectacular. It's a very
Wow.
expansive experience.
Wow.
I love it.
Well, I want everybody to know that if they want to get a hold of Shawn Galaway for any of his seminars or for any of his records and or any of his amazing trips with dolphins, let me see, or any of the men's groups. Have I missed anything? Conflict resolution, men and women groups,
Yeah, we
do that
we
too?
do gender reconciliation work as well.
Gender reconciliation. And the website is?
ShawnGallaway.com or awakenyourhearts.org, or you could go to facebook.com/forward-dolphintune, and you can see all the video footage and pictures of our dolphin journeys.
All right. Well, Shawn Galaway, thank you so much for your wisdom, for your music. We enjoyed it so much. That is Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit, and we'll be showing some pictures of those dolphins too. Amazing, amazing. And you can get some of his music. Just fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. All right, perfect. I should have thought of that in the end.
Well, that was fun.